I'm here with Sarath Sengupta, who's the head of Global Trade and Receivables Finance in India for HSBC, and Simon Constantinides, who's the regional head of Global Trade and Receivable Finance in Asia for HSBC. Gentlemen, we're just talking about the broad outlook for the economy. And Sarath, tell us a little bit about India's industrial structure. Obviously, we know it has cheap labour, but also has some very high-tech industries, some very advanced industries in India.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. I think it's a great mix because you have, currently if you look at it, India's trade is dominated by sort of natural resource-based exports. So whether it's refined petroleum or sort of low value add like wood, craft, etc., textiles. However, there is a change in the pattern as we go along. And Simon did mention pharmaceuticals, and pharmaceuticals is a big play in India, because the Indian generics players have really established themselves, and they have a huge opportunity as there's a patent cliff in the US where a lot of drugs come off patent. So that's a huge opportunity for the Indian pharmaceutical players to come into play. There is also software, which everyone knows India for, but then that's going to expand into other regions in Asia as well. And also the other fact is that India will start demanding a lot of industries to come in and help in its growth, as the middle class sort of starts demanding better healthcare, better quality education, sanitation, etc. That's going to demand a lot more of industries coming in as well. So there is going to be a shift in the kind of industries that we are seeing right now. One of the industries that is also supposed to pick up is automobiles. Mm-hmm. So India is already sort of a small car hub for the automobile industry, and that's going to really pick up over the next decade or so.
Okay. Now, Simon, we said that one of the major trade partners for India in future is going to be China, and trade's going to flow both ways. Mm-hmm. So what sort of trade flows are we going to see between these two big powers, India and China?
Well, I think that there's going to be a certain amount of trade flow, that China's going through the same evolution process as India, but a little bit ahead of the schedule in terms of moving up the value chain. And that's driven very much by China's rising labor rates. So China will move from its largest export sector of information communication technology into industrial machinery. So that will create demand for products that China needs that it won't be producing, that India will be able to produce in terms of the lower value chain. And that will be garments, textiles, as Sarath mentioned, wood and furniture as well. But at the same time, because they've got different sectors that they're known for, such as pharmaceutical, and to Sarath's earlier point, as the middle class rises, their demands will change for better healthcare, better food, higher quality agricultural products, and that will create certain demand as well. And we also know that China is a huge consumer of energy and oil. And so refining oil products and moving the shipments of those into China as well, because China just can't satisfy its thirst. It will take what it can from everywhere. Also creates a lot of opportunities as well. And if you look at some of the major industrial conglomerates already present in India, they are very well diversified in their product range and the sectors that they cover, and they're just huge opportunities in those for them to expand their markets.
Okay. Now, Sarath, you mentioned about the growing Indian middle class. Clearly this is a huge force. You might be able to give us some dimensions for it, but what about its buying power? That's really going to reshape Indian imports, is that correct?
Yeah, clearly, Brian. The Indian middle class, it has sort of over the years really grown, and people are coming into income bracket where they just don't ask for the things that they need on a daily basis, but they want more than that. So then there are the basic needs like sanitation, education, healthcare, etc. But apart from that, people are now starting to demand luxury goods. People are starting to demand sort of consumer durables of a nature which are much more than just the necessary ones. So there is a huge sort of opportunity there for companies from outside of India to come and satisfy that requirement, because clearly Indian companies today are not still there in terms of satisfying the full demand that is already created from the Indian middle class, and that is just going to increase over the next 5 years or so. So there is a huge opportunity there.
And Simon, on the industrial side, I mean, again, we should see a lot of imports there, don't we? As a country as large as India goes through an industrialization like we're seeing, it will presumably need lots of supplies of capital goods and resources to fulfill that. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. And if you think, you probably can't name any branded consumer products that are Indian branded consumer products. So that demand will be coming from the West. And that will certainly be a continued driver of imports into the marketplace as well. But at the same time, that demand for infrastructure will require an advanced industrial machinery, actual supplies of quality products for construction as well. And we see that in many markets. So there will be quite a diverse range of demands. But at the same time, let's not forget that the diversity of the manufacturing and the services sector in India is quite significant. It is a natural market for service centers, call centers, for IT and information technology, as Surath mentioned, and that will continue to be a very, very strong sector of exporting services, software as well. So we'll see a very, very good mix. But in all these emerging markets in Asia, as the middle class rises, we will see greater domestic consumption, and that will frequently be driven by imports of one market being able to satisfy what another market like India might not have domestically for its own consumption and need.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I think you've mapped out very well there the industrial structure of India. And in just a few moments, I think we'll come back and talk about the trade finance instruments that you can use in order to import and export goods from India.